What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 8 Limbs podcast. Today, we don't have one guest, we have two. And as exciting guests because we have Stephan Batman and Madalyn Batman, our clients from 8 Limbs Creative, but also our new partners in the Rental Revolution course. They're creating a course all about short-term rental success. They've had a lot of success in this, but they have so much more knowledge to give than just showing the success. So we're going to learn today about all things short-term rental, Airbnb, Verbo, investment properties, and how you can maximize your profits when you want to invest your money and have it go work for you. So guys, meet Stephan and Madalyn.
What is up? Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Hey, guys.
Yeah, so we're in St. Pete, Florida right now at our studio, but you guys live and reside in Claremont, but you have properties in Lakeland, Florida. So we're in the Central Florida corridor.
Yep.
And we've talked before about, location does matter. We're in an area that's up and coming. A lot of vacationers come through Florida, but Airbnb isn't something limited to Florida. There's Airbnbs everywhere. I've got friends that are overseas right now in multiple different countries. They're staying in Airbnbs.
Yep.
So it's something that's kind of exploded. And the general theme of it, if we zoom out just a second, people want their money to work for them in some way. And you hear all the money gurus talk about that. Like, the money does you no good in banks. There's no reason to save onto your money. Just hold on to it. It needs to be out doing something for you. It's meant to be used. So where does the short-term rental, Stephan, line up in priority for where you put your money?
Man, it's become the priority, really. Like, we were having a lot of the same conversations that I'm sure people are having right now. Property taxes are going up, insurance costs are going up. So what used to be a really solid investment in a long-term rental, those margins are shrinking significantly.
It's making it impossible.
Damn near. And so we're always kind of on the edge of looking for something new, looking for what that next thing could be. I have to give credit to my wife here because she brought the idea of short-term rentals to me. And I initially was kind of scared of it. There's a lot of outlay. There's a lot of cash up front.
What if it doesn't work?
What if
Does
it
our
doesn't work?
area, does our area even support it?
Yeah, we actually had a deal worked out with our stager that if she staged the property, we paid for all this furniture and it didn't work, she would buy the furniture back from us. So we weren't out all this money.
That's beautiful.
Right. So we were trying to mitigate as many of the risks going into it. But once we got into it and started seeing the wheels start turning and started seeing what it could potentially do, it was like a light bulb went off. And then we were like, oh, we can do this and we can replicate this. And that was really the premise of what we wanted to put this masterclass together for, is to save people that period of time that we had to spend learning the business, and shorten that period of time they can go from zero to success as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah. We made so many mistakes in the beginning. Like, the first year that we fumbled through doing short-term rentals, it was like that actually did spawn. Our whole idea was that, man, like, we wasted $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 like learning these mistakes. Like, can we now give away all of our tips, tricks, all of our lessons to hopefully save people those mistakes that we made? But once we got through those mistakes, once we developed these systems, it is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, but even just to reframe that, I don't think you wasted money on mistakes. I just think you spent money on lessons.
True.
You spent money to learn shit. So it's
Yes.
like,
We bought for our education.
A waste of time. No, you learned, right? Like, we learn things. So it's like you bought an education.
That's
and
true.
you say you learn a lot more in the game than on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely that type. When people are like, hey, let's, if you're going to go do something, let me go through this whole certification. I'm like, let me just start doing it. I'll
Yes.
fumble it for an hour and I'll be good by hour two.
Yes.
For someone who wants to, like, let's see what they're doing. Oh, what are they doing? So it's like, it's better to get involved. And I think that you learn a lot more like that, and you test yourself too. Yep. Because in any business, and I'm sure the short-term rental business is no different, your grit gets tested a lot, and so it's like you get thumped on the nose once, and you're like, okay, is that enough to set you down, or are you like, I'm back for more tomorrow, and it's like it tests you as a person for sure.
Yep.
And I think like we're talking about short-term rentals or STR, and like in the real estate you see that a lot. But if you guys are just watching this podcast and you haven't heard that, really the idea would be that the traditional model is someone has money they want to invest, or, like the Dave Ramsey's out there telling you get your investment property. So you buy a property and you rent it out on a long-term basis to a tenant. But the difference is you're going to be charging them a little bit less per month. Plus, they really make that house their own. So when they're living in their house, it becomes their house more than your house. You don't have access to the house anymore. You might own the asset, and yes, they're paying off your mortgage, but you really can enter that property whenever you want to see what's going on, to keep the upkeep on it, to make sure it stays maintained.
Right.
But in the short-term rental model, you can actually charge more. You have access to the property a lot more frequently, right? But in the end of the day, you're still getting a mortgage paid down on a property that you own.
Yep.
Right. So it is a win-win.
Yeah, and it's creating passive income. I think that's the main difference among all the different investment opportunities as it goes, is that there's avenues in which you can build passive income. There's avenues in which you can build wealth off of equity gains. There's leave it and stay in the stock market. This is one of the first investment opportunities I think that's out there that combines things. You can win at the equity game and get passive income. And that's what's so mind-blowing about the whole concept of it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and to your point, like what you were saying, is that the accessibility to the properties, those properties are getting cleaned 3, 4, 5 times a month.
Yep.
So somebody's got eyes on, somebody's changing air filters, somebody's vacuuming, mopping floors, doing that kind of stuff. Whereas you have a long-term tenant in there, they may do that once every 6 months. So what's that doing to your AC system? What's that doing to your floors? These nice wood plank tile floors that you put down. How long are those going to last with long-term tenants in there? So
Plus, you can actually use your own house, like we were talking about last time I was with you guys. Like if you get an Airbnb and it's in a place that you don't live, of course you want to use that house, the old timeshare model, right? So it's like you can be like, hey, I'm going to reserve this for me and my family to go and enjoy the place and see what it's like to actually live in it and take a vacation there, and then it's back on the market again.
Yep.
But it's like if you buy a house, you really are never using that house. You're buying it as just someone else's place, and it does make sense, but I think it really made sense to people who got into that game a lot earlier.
Yep.
And in the 90s, early 2000s, if they own properties like that, they probably are profiting still, right?
Yep.
But currently now, that long-term rental model, I know does work for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, when we got into the short-term rental, the margins for us versus long-term were 3x right out the gate.
Yeah.
It got close to 4x. Now, since the market has shifted and stuff, it has backed down to maybe 2x, or if you're doing it right, you can 3x. And what I was telling him as well, I wonder how long this is going to be relevant. Will it be, because a lot of people were like, oh, it's only doing twice as much. I heard it could do three times as much as 4 times as much. But the point I was bringing up to Stephen the other day is where I get that maybe it's not 3x and it's only 2x, you're going negative in a long-term realm right now.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So it's the play right now. I mean, and in the investment world, it always moves, but it is the play for right now. I don't see it going anywhere. And it is still more beneficial than long-term renting.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys are also real estate agents, right?
Yeah.
So you've worked with clients as well. Like, how much of the clientele that you work with has investment goals, even if they're not like an investor now? Are people thinking that still? Or do you still have people like, hey, this is my house I'm going to live in, but do you have people that buy second, third properties?
Well, I think that's always something that we talk to our clients about, because our goal as real estate agents is we're building relationships with people. Same thing you guys do in your business. You're building relationships that hopefully are long-term relationships. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, hopefully we're helping them buy and sell and buy and sell and buy and sell. Or if they get to a point where they're buying investment properties, we want to be knowledgeable enough to be able to tell them, hey, we've literally done this, tried this. Here's the best practices for long-term rentals. Yep. Hey, short-term rentals, here's the best practices. Again, that kind of led into our motivations behind the course was, man, we've had so many people asking us about short-term rentals lately. Like, how do we reach the masses? How do we tell everybody the best practices that we've found with this process to be able to not be scared to jump into it? If they have a resource to leverage and go back to, they may actually take that step. They may actually take a step towards bettering their future, bettering their family's future, and starting that legacy of investments. Whereas if they didn't have that information, they may not have done that.
Yeah. What are some of the things that people just don't know? We were talking about before we got on is people don't know what they don't know. And so I was saying it's not that people are, well, I guess the word is ignorant, but not the insulting way to word ignorant.
Sure.
It's they're ignorant because they just don't have the knowledge, but it's not that if they had it, they would make different decisions is my point. So in the short-term rental market, what are some things that you've seen people go, oh my God, I had no idea about that?
The biggest, if I can wrap it up in one bubble, is the short-term rental game is a hospitality business. It's not a real estate business per se, right? That was one of the biggest misconceptions that we had early on, was like, oh, this is a real estate investment. We're going to set it and forget it, and it's going to produce. Well, we quickly found out that, oh, no, we actually have to like nurture these people that are in these properties. We have to provide things for these people. And then it really changed the mindset of the whole thing to a, how do we add the most amount of value to our guests during that stay to make them repeat customers, to make them leave 5-star reviews, to build that reputation. So that was the biggest aha for me early on.
Well, yeah, I think you hear it all the time. We've heard it from people, and we had the exact same view. It's like, oh, we'll just furnish a property, throw it up on one of the platforms, whether it's Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, like, and then we're just going to make a ton of money. Like, you know, the buzz was out there, and we did get into it and learn that that's not exactly the case. It's easy to do. It's not simple. It does take a level of skill. There are certain angles that you take that will make you more money. There are systems that you can put in place that can make it easier. There's, you know, and these are the types of things that we learned, that although the concept of it is, yes, you furnish this place and you put it up on one of the platforms, there's tricks and tips to the trade that took us a little bit of time to figure out. The hospitality side of it, the listing side of it. You know, we started out putting these up on, you know, these platforms like that because we're real estate agents, like listings. Like, we literally had front of the house. We gave a nice description of the house.
Now you're probably more like the pool, the amenities, right? Yeah. I've seen that. I got a friend who's gotten super host on 2 properties, and he has just 2, and he got that very quickly. We did shoot both media packages for him, but he's just a solo guy managing these. And I looked at both of them. I was like, let me see your listings. Like, he just handed me his phone, but both he lists. Like, one of them was just the beautiful pool, the sunset shot in the back of the house, because like that's what someone wants to know if they have, right? It's like the front of the house is several clicks in. It's way more. You're like, who gives a shit what the front of the house looks like? If I'm going to say that, I don't care.
Right.
What does it live like? Right. Same thing as like interior of a vehicle matters a lot to me. Versus just the exterior. So like a friend, he has a McLaren, and they look so cool from the outside. But when I rode in that car, I was like, dude, this sucks. Like, there's no room for anything. Your girl could have a purse this big, and it's so bumpy and you're so low.
About Range Rover.
I was like, the experience is not great.
No.
You know, but you want to know what they're going to get, what's going to live like, or what's going to stay like, you know? So those are things that people don't know. I think what you were saying earlier too, tips and tricks are kind of the game right now in all businesses. Like, people can approach business one way, but yeah, exactly, a pro tip. And then you get it and you're like, oh my God. Like, I've had several breakthroughs in my business that I've learned from others. And sometimes I'll hear it in a podcast. Hopefully there can be some of those today for others. I'll hear it in conversation. I'll see it on social media. I'll buy a course and I'll learn things. And I might have only got one thing. I bought a course on real estate photography, and it was beautiful for me because I learned right away we're doing like almost everything right. Like, there's like few things that we needed, but those few things were worth every bit of that money. I'm like, oh, we're going to start doing that.
Moments.
There's like so few of them, but I'm like, still worth it, because those are absolutely worth it. It was like, you know, a $600 course, absolutely worth the knowledge, because we made that back in weeks later than that, you know? So the little tips and tricks, people just don't want to approach things the same way. I watched a video last night that stuck out to me a lot. And this guy's made hundreds of millions of dollars, and he was explaining something that it was a principle more than actual lesson. The principle like really jumped out at me. And he's like, think about if you look at New York City in like the 1980s and look at New York City now. He's like, it looks the same, showing a photo of it. He's like, there's not that many new buildings. There's not much that's happened there. He's like, but look at Dubai in the 1980s and look at it now. It was a desert, flat. There's nothing. He's like, so why did so many people make their billions in Dubai? Because there where things are happening, there where things are moving fast. And it's like, when you look at what everyone else is doing, most people try to approach what everyone else is doing. So if you can zoom out and go, okay, well, most of the masses are doing X, and I'm going to go do Y, you're going to set yourself up for a non-conventional return. But when people approach everything so conventional, and they're like, okay, well, I'm being safe, I'm being conventional, you're going to get safe returns then. You're going to have a safe life.
Every time.
So I think that is what people feel about the short-term rental business, because they're like, well, it's safer to get a long-term rental. Sure, you know, but I can absolutely say from clients that I've talked to, when people have properties and they have 5, 6, 7 and they're cash flowing for them, especially if they can get a good price when they get in, the money is unconventional that they're getting.
Yeah.
This episode of the Aliens Podcast is brought to you by 7 Day Social Realtor, your one-stop shop for all things real estate social media. It is an all-included course that teaches you how to shoot content, how to utilize content, how to make viral reels, and how to actually get yourself new leads and new listings with content in social media. You can find them at 7 Day Social Realtor on Instagram, as well as 7daysocialrealtor.com. Use code 8LIMS for 10% off. Right, and it's easy as it comes in. When they hire management companies and hire cleanies, they can automate it out. It is just coming in unconventionally for them.
Well, and I think there is a lot of income streams that come off of that industry that I think a lot of people are unaware of unless you get into it, because it was an aha for us. You know, we got into it and we found there was 2, 3, 4 other ways to make additional lines or streams of income from that. There was additional opportunities for marketing and advertising. You know, we own all these properties. We throw in our business cards and our market. There's brand new people coming through these properties.
It's true.
We host 200, 300 new faces to the city of Lakeland each month, every couple of months. So even when it comes to, you know, local businesses, local coffee shops, you know, they're advertising to the same community, the same people that are there. And a big question they always had is, how do we get in front of new eyes? And that was ahas for us. We're like, well, we're in front of 200 new eyes every, you know, month, 2 months. So then there was advertising opportunities that came from, like, we are driving new business to you, not the same business. Like, our advertising separates that.
Yeah.
It's new eyes. It's new business. You know, we have return clients, but the majority of them are brand new eyes. So just advertising opportunities there, little rooms for upsale, partnerships, affiliates, they come in. We love this couch. We love this bed. We love this. You know, we're able to throw out discounts or have affiliate links or things like, there's just all these different other streams. And for us, at least, you know, Warren Buffett said the greatest way, if you're not making money while you sleep, you're not building wealth. And we pair that with 7 lines of passive income. You need 7 different streams. And that was a huge aha. We always thought, how do we make money when we sleep? How do we make money when we sleep? And for the first time when we started Airbnb, we were sleeping and we got a ding at 2 a.m. and there was $2,000 that was put into our bank account, automatically deposited because somebody checked in. And we were like, we just made money while we were sleeping.
It's fun.
And, you know, so it's just all these different aha moments that we've experienced through it, that it's lots of things to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that line up with you guys too? Because you guys are both parents. You have 2 daughters, you know, like, what does like day-to-day life look like for you guys now? Like, being realtors, being, you know, short-term rental owners, also working on course content and being mom and dad, right? Playing all the roles. What does daily life look like?
Man, I wish I could say it was more organized than it was, and I think that's a huge opportunity for us, especially me, as far as time management, blocking out time and that kind of stuff. But right now, because we're in the building phase and it seems like we're constantly doing something new, is that it can be a little chaotic sometimes.
So good, right?
Until our system is in place. It depends
like
on if we're building or if we've...
It's like we were talking about earlier, though. It's like
systems.
Comfort and complacency is like,
when you're on, you're on. Right? When you're on, you're staying on.
It keeps you sharp. It keeps you engaged when you're in the process of building and developing things. So,
it's actually better for busy.
To answer your question, I think for the girls, I think it shows them that just because things are busy, just because there's a lot going on, that we can still carve out time and go on little ice cream dates or take them to Claire's to buy some earrings or something like that, you know. And then we're also toting their little butts to the Airbnb so they can help unwrap furniture and, you know, put up decorations and plants and stuff like that. So they're getting both sides of that environment. And I think that's kind of how we want it to be.
Yeah, I think you do too. You teach your kids how to work.
Involve
and
them.
Even to circle back a second ago, you're saying like it's like things are increasing, they're growing. There's something that a lot of people lie to themselves with. I actually was on the phone this morning. I was talking to a client. She runs a large real estate team in the Tampa area. And she said, you know, like, we're taking a little time in this summer. We're kind of taking a pause. Business is pausing for now. And I was like, hey, can I be direct? Sure. I'm like, there's no such thing in business. You're either expanding or you're contracting. Sounds like you're contracting. As long as you willingly know that you want your business to shrink, then take your summer and just chill.
Right.
But you have got to be real with yourself and say, I'm choosing to let my business shrink while I chill. because like it does not stay still.
Yep.
Yes.
It absolutely does not stay still. It's either getting bigger or it's shrinking. It's this constant thing, and that can be on a day-to-day basis. And like
Yes.
every business coach, everyone I look up to talks about this so much, but the people will lie to themselves. So you kind of need to always be in the season of expansion. I don't really like the idea of, okay, I can make just enough money, and then after that, I just chill. Because what does chilling look like for most people? It looks like their mind gets slow, their tongue gets slow in conversation, their wit gets slow, their body gets out of shape, and they start to just contract in and doesn't do anything. So being in that season of expansion and in a situation like the real estate, it's all about connection and networking. So you're always meeting someone new, and most likely, and you're probably experiencing this, you meet someone new through the circumstance of maybe they're guests or maybe they're a potential, but then they've got another business, they put you onto something else, they introduce you to this guy, and it just kind of flows like that. That's how it is for me.
Yep.
And so it's every day super exciting. And like the last point I'll make on that, that's why it's so good to be almost chaotic, is that I have a good buddy, a guy who has the Airbnbs, and he was talking about, I'm going to call you out. You know who you are, my man. He tends to date chaotic women.
Right.
And he's 30 looking for his wifey, and he's women are chaotic, cause him all this drama. And I was like, David, I think I think it's because your day-to-day life, you've gotten so good at managing it, making it easy. So he's good on his finances, and he's got his life in order. So Monday through Friday is really easy for him. He even admits that. He's like, yeah, there's no stress at work. It's pretty cake for me. I close my deals. I got my passive. He's a financial advisor. And so he's like, and then he invests in properties. So it's like, yeah, like I need, and I'm like, exactly, you're seeking out excitement. I'm like, for me, Monday through Friday, it is never the same. And it is so many tidal waves and sinks of just like conversations, meeting these people. So it's fun to be in expansion.
Yeah.
It's fun. It keeps you sharp. And like the point is, when you're playing the game, you're on. But if you take too long of the off season, guys have a hard time coming back from the off season. So stay in it and juggle, because I think it's good for the kids to see that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, that season, kind of like what we were talking about off camera earlier about the, what the traps that people fall into, and guys specifically, it's like, oh, we got to have time to go hunting, we got to have time to go golfing, we got to have time to do all these things. And then as soon as you start going in those growth moments, into those growth phases of your life, or in those creation realms, you start having a lot of people fall off, and a lot of things fall off because they're not in that same frame of mind. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult.
You're not engaging in the fun.
Right. It's difficult initially because it's like, oh, no, like my friends, like where are they going? Mm-hmm. But then that kind of loses the importance. And it's like, no, like I'm reaching towards things for my family and my kids and their future. Either come along or don't.
Yeah.
It's like, be part of that ride, be part of that journey, or be, a previous chapter in the book. And that sounds harsh, that sounds whatever, call it what you want. But I think for people that are looking to achieve goals and achieve next levels, there's other people at those next levels that are doing the same things that are waiting for you to get there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think you just said it. You just said it. It's like you lose people on the spiral staircase, because it's not like a straight staircase. It's like a zigzaggy staircase.
Right.
And you lose them, but you meet new ones on the way up. Right. And there's a guy named Justin Waller that I follow that I like, and he has this clip. It went viral because it sounds so mean. But the way that you really zoom out and listen to it, I'm like, dude, that is so true. He's like, it's really hard to get my attention if we're not making money together. He's like, call it what you want. I don't care. He's like, but like, I still have great friends, but most of our time is us sitting around smoking cigars, talking about when the next move is. It's not us talking about where we're going to go next, what the after party is. He's like, we don't care about that shit.
Right.
Yep.
And it's so true. It's like you will meet people who are on the same path because your energy will attract them. Mm-hmm. And it's great. And like people that also have families and are also on the same boat, like, hey, how can we be healthy? How can we have our financial healthy, our relationship healthy, but also grow this thing and keep finding new ways to stay sharp. So I think most people that are getting into the Airbnb business too, at some way, shape, or form, have had to make some money somewhere, or they wouldn't be trying to invest. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Do you have like just the classic, like 9-to-5er that wants to get in, or is it people who own businesses? What's your normal clientele with that?
Well, there is a wide range of different people, because there's so many different ways that you can attain it. And there's, you've got the young kids that know about investing, but they don't know what to do to get into it. And we can advise them and help them. And then you've got middle of the road people who there's a ton of real estate agents that are in, real estate every single day. Some of them don't even own their own home, and the majority of them don't invest.
Yeah.
So then there's a large clientele sector that's they know of it. They do have some money to play with. They want to get into the investing world. They know. And then, you're all the way up to ones that own major portfolios that are well versed with investing. They're still learning new things because it's a new industry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a wide range.
What you just said is important. I think this is important to know too, is like technology changes in all things so fast. And so it's like that, like the way that social media feels to like our parents, I'm sure that short-term rentals can feel with the early investors, where they're like, I don't know about all that Airbnb stuff. I mean, it used to be
they
just
think
show
it's
up and
risky.
Exactly. So it's like that's the perfect time to capitalize, because for you guys, you're trying to educate others so everyone has the same knowledge. But for the other investor, if you don't lack the knowledge, now is your time to beat them to it.
Yes.
So you can beat those people who are still making their decisions. That's how I think. I'm like, let them piddle on their decisions, and I'm going to hit it while they're not paying attention. And it's like, that's the perfect time. So when they're still fiddling out, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, you can jump in and get some properties right now. And there's still a lot of opportunities. This is an important topic too, is how often, or how viable is a flip for Airbnb? Like, is that a good move, or you want to find some already renovated?
So flipping the term, like flipping the property, buying a rundown property, and you flip the property and then you short term it. That's, that's a loaded question in the area of what location is it in, what condition is it in, and what are contractors. There's a whole realm of flipping also Airbnbs for investors that utilize long-term rentals and flip them into a short-term rental. And this is like really important that I want most what you call like old school investors that have done the long-term rentals to know. Rental as a category is now, there's another category. Short-term is not a version of long-term when it comes to investing. There is a whole new investment category. There's, that once upon a time there was real estate investing, there was stock market investing, and short-term rentals is a whole new category. So you can have a large portfolio. I advise keep half of your portfolio long-term renting. Diversification is huge in the wealth building world. So you don't have to throw all your eggs in one basket. You don't have to do all 100 of your properties long-term. Do a sector of them. There's diversification now within that sector of investing. And most investors, big-time investors, their money's not in one spot. They've got it in the stock market. They've got it in real estate. They've got it, and they've got it into long-term rentals. You now have the ability to take that long-term rental sector of your portfolio and even diversify that. So most of them, it's like take 20%, take 30%, take 40% of that portfolio, make it short-term, keep the other long-term. And that's really high risk, high return, low risk, low return.
Yeah,
and that's what that's what helps you get that nice even.
I like that. Yeah, that totally makes sense for them, and I love that. What would it look like though? Can you use, and this is, I guess, I understand the fixed and flip model well, and I've got a lot of people that do that. That does not work for the short-term rental, like, because you really couldn't get someone else to pay for it because there's no cash out, right? There's no moment you're getting that cash out. So if you're fixed and flip and you're doing it in 90 days, you can use hard money or someone else's money, then boom, boom, and you're out.
Yep.
But with short-term, it doesn't work like that. So it's
because the whole short-term
plays that you can use someone else's money to fix and flip it if they're like an investor partner.
Well, the whole short-term goal is it's more of a long-term hold type model,
it's funny.
right?
It's short-term, but it is long-term as far as the long-term payment. Yeah.
So the concept of it is short-term, but the investment itself is more of a long-term investment. So it's got to be viewed in that realm. I think there are opportunities where to be able to acquire a property, you have some short-term financing options or some hard money lenders, whatever it may be. And then would the goal of rolling that into a long-term fixed type of loan at some point? Because the other thing with the short-term rentals is the speed at which you can pay these loans off based upon the amount of revenue and the money that's going to be coming in. You should be able to pay those properties off a lot sooner.
That's what I mean. Is there a play there?
Yeah, and we're actually working with a client right now that's the case, and it works because the property that he's looking to short-term rent appraised for higher than what he's under contract for, and then he realized there's all this work that has to be done to it to get it up to par. So basically, he's asking the seller for what they call a seller credit at closing, and if they can attain that $10,000 or $20,000 credit, then that cash that he's using to flip the property is actually tied up in the loan. So instead of him coming up with that, he's getting.
I didn't realize that was an option for them.
Yeah. He's getting the $20,000 at closing. You take that $20,000, you renovate the property, you furnish the property. It's rolled into the
Is
loan.
$20,000 enough to renovate a property?
Yes.
Some cases.
If you know what
Depends
you're
on
doing
the scope
with
of
it.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you know what you're doing
I
with
want
it.
like
If
a wholesale property. Sometimes I know people are going 70 to 100K. So that's what I mean. Like, is that an option? I know people that do that successfully now and they just sell it.
Yes.
You know.
If you can, the play there is going to be that you're gonna hard money that, you're gonna portfolio loan that, you're
And
gonna
then
get
can
it,
you
you're gonna
get
fix
a
it
mortgage
up,
after
and-
it's
yeah,
fixed.
and then you're gonna refi it. That's gonna go into, so that, you know, as long as you stay within your margins, basically you want to know that you're out the door, what you're going to refi that for, what the total value of the property is going to be, still meets for what that area can sustain as an occupancy rate or a nightly rate. But because you're working in a realm where your gross on a property is 2 times and 3 times the amount as it's going to be
They're
for
more likely
a
to
long,
loan you the money.
they're more likely to loan the money, and you can make up that difference or that margin. You know, a lot of people are scared about the payment. The property prices have risen, the interest rate has risen. What that equals is a higher monthly payment. But, you know, one time, so long-term rental will rent for $1,500 a month. Short-term, you're getting $3,000, $3,500 as your gross. So if you can mitigate your expenses, the more you mitigate your expenses, the more of that $3,500 you get to keep.
Yeah.
So you're taking an $1,800 mortgage payment and you're surpassing that. It makes it doable. It makes it possible. So absolutely.
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
the answer.
Looking forward to getting into that in the rental revolution for you guys. I'm sure you're going to talk about that.
Yep.
As far as mitigating expenses, what can bring expenses down if you have a property? Just getting more and sharing like paper goods, supplies, but like what other ways to bring costs down?
Definitely scalability. But tips and tricks, knowing what to do. I mean, like a big cost saver for us, and one of the biggest expenses of short term is going to be your cleaning fees. And so being able to understand, okay, what do the cleaners need? What are they going to lower their jobs on? And when we started out, it was like it would take a cleaner 3 to 4 hours to clean one of our properties because we weren't equipping them well. And when we got into it, if we could create an environment where they could clean a property in an hour to 2 hours, then instead of $180 per cleaning, they were charging us $80 per cleaning. And that's significant
Yeah,
when
adds
you're paying 4,
It happens
5,
every
or 20.
checkout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't Airbnb charge the cleaning fee as well? So they charge that to their booker.
So the host has the option to charge a cleaning fee. So like we charge, most of our properties have like $150 depending on the property for a cleaning fee.
Yeah.
And then we just use that to pay to the cleaners.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that comes
right.
from the host, not from Airbnb. The host chooses what
Right.
and they have to, because just for that example, there's some hosts that if they don't know what they're doing, they're having to pay $180 to $200 per cleaning. So they put that into there. And then there's other hosts that are able to negotiate, whether it's scalability, whether it's because they know what they're doing. They can negotiate that same exact cleaning for $80. So then they charge $100, and then that makes them more competitive in obviously the realm when somebody's choosing which Airbnb they're going to choose. This one only has an $80 cleaning fee, and there's an extra $200 or $300 on this one. So it's...
You reminded me of something funny that I have to share about the cleaning at Airbnbs. I rented a house in St. Pete when I first moved over here, and it was a beautiful bungalow house, and right behind it was a cottage, fully furnished cottage that was there. Really, there was a fridge, a kitchen, a bathroom. I mean, you remember the place; it was great, and it was too hard not to. I think on Airbnb I had to. I own a real estate media company. I was like, I shot content of it, and I listed it, and it started booking out like fast right there in St. Pete. And it was easy. I hired cleaners, and it was also on the property I was living at, and they shared the same backyard. So I realized I'll never do that again.
Yes.
But this is like my first little run at it, and it was fun to see, see what it was like. And I remember specifically, I had a cleaning lady come every time, and I had it all automated, so she would check out, I'd notify her, she would come clean, we'd go back up, etc. Well, in one case, I guess somehow or another, one of her hairs, she had black hair, one of her hairs was just like right in the toilet.
Yeah.
So like when you open the toilet, it was a clean toilet, but the hair, there's one head of hair there. Totally makes sense, understandable. The place was clean, beds are made, everything was clean. The guest that checked in was very Karen.
Right.
And
Yes.
dude went off. She went off so much so where, and I didn't know. I mean, she gets on, she sends crazy
hair.
messages, calls Airbnb. I mean, tried to like get additional money because she was so traumatized by seeing a hair. And then she was parked, at my house, so I didn't know. I got the message Airbnb, and so I walked over like, hey, are you good? Like I was just kind of talking to her, walking over to her vehicle. Like
Right.
I'm there. I walked outside.
Right.
and she started to freak out inside her vehicle, roll in, don't come closer, don't come near me, don't come near me, like pulled out, sped out. Then Airbnb calls me, then I go for the Airbnb, and I was like, I have no idea what to say about this lady. Like, just refund her. I hope I never see her again in life. Like, but
Right.
I
Oh
realized
my
like
gosh.
cleaning can be real important.
Cleaning is the make or break. I
Yeah.
mean, cleaning runs your business. The guest's idea of how clean the property is, I mean, that was something that we too really underestimated getting
Yeah.
into it. Makes total sense now, but in the beginning, but yeah, a good cleaner, a good cleaning company, a good cleaning schedule, the payment of the cleaning. I mean, that's a big factor in
Yeah.
the success of your business.
I remember I saw the photo of the hair too because she sent it to Airbnb within the messenger.
You're like, there it
So I
is.
saw it and I was like, wow. And like, it just showed there's people of all different walks of life out there. And like, perfect
Yep.
example, we had this conversation at dinner last week. There was a group of 8 of us going to dinner in a group before we went to watch our friend this boxing fight. And so we're sharing appetizers. We're, who wants to try this? Who wants to try that? And I'm like, you see, and what we're talking about, me and my friend Joe, is we used to work as servers. When I worked as a server, if there was an appetizer that come off that table and they didn't eat it out, I would absolutely eat that appetizer and went back to the kitchen. I would
Yeah.
eat it because I'm like,
Yeah.
what's the difference if I sat down with your friends I didn't know and shared their app?
Right.
Right.
Same shit.
Right.
But there are some people at that table that were so cringed by the idea of that because they didn't know the person. That's the only differentiator. They
Right.
don't know them. It's like, well, how do you know if they're clean or not?
Right.
So it's like, I think there's different, like I could care less about sitting on a machine at the gym that people already sweat on.
Right.
Some people need that sanitizer. They need that towel. They
Right.
need to know. So
Right.
I'm sure like when you deal with the general public,
Yep.
you have to just play the super hardcore safe game and make sure there's no hairs on the top of the toilet.
There's a lot of psychological
Yeah.
aspects of it that you have to think, and you can't think in the logical way.
Right.
It's very psychological.
Have you guys
everything
had
about it.
any, besides saying names, have you had any like funny things? I know we talked about someone asking you how to boil water, and that was odd, but like, which was
Yeah.
funny. But has there been any things that you're like, man, someone asked you to catch a lizard once, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we had a lizard one time. Leaves are always kind of there's too many leaves, especially like in the fall when leaves start dropping. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's too many leaves on the porches. Can you guys send the cleaners by to sweep these off?
Yeah. Wait.
It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we,
where are you
we
from?
own all of
Like
them
a
in
Ryobi
Florida.
blower and leave a blower from Home Depot there is what I do.
Well, and people like coming from different parts of the United States that maybe haven't been to Florida before, or maybe don't understand that the way that kind of life is down here. That's one of our biggest, like obviously during the summer,
Yeah.
we have a lot of guests that come in from the north, and they're just like, we entered the property and it was so hot in here, so it was kind of a rough stay. It was like 75 degrees inside the property, and I'm over here like, please don't turn it down past 72 because the air conditioner will break. Like, just because during 100-degree heat, like your property, even if your air is on 63, is not going to get below during the day, like 72.
Yeah.
And there's just like, and these are things that like we all just know, like, yep, it's hot sometimes even inside, even if you have your air on. But
Yeah.
it's just total foreign concept. So they're, it's so, it's
I thought you
so
were going to say
hot
like,
here.
they
And I'm
couldn't
like,
hang out
we're
in the
in
patio
Florida.
spaces. I mean, yeah, it's true. They don't know what they're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always tell the story because it's not as relative to that, but it just shows what people are tempered to. Because I went to Panama, Central America a few years back to actually film for real estate development. And as I'm down there, we're bopping around to all these different places. We were very active for 6 days. We're driving 5-hour road trips because we had a lot of things scheduled in that time we were there. And there's not central AC in Panama, even in the buildings. A lot of them didn't have it. So there wasn't like air conditioning like what I'm used to, and it was very humid there. None of the people who live there are sweating. The 3 of us that are all from Lakeland, Florida are soaked.
Yes.
And I mean soaked.
Yes.
Like it was uncomfortable. It was awkward. I felt very gross. I didn't want to you don't want to do
Yes.
business like that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone was just, they're just dry and we're not. And we couldn't stop talking about like, what is this? What's happening here?
What is-
And they're just used to it. They're just used to that temperature difference.
Tell me you're a tourist without telling me
Adaptability.
you're a tourist.
Right. And they knew real
I'm
quick.
sitting here sweating and you're not.
Because we were soaked. It's like when you think about being sweaty too, like it's so normal. It's a beautiful, elegant design that our body knows how to do that to sweat to cool us down.
Yeah.
But it's like it's the quickest thing that makes you feel gross. Like
Yeah.
even
Yes.
as a guy, you're supposed to sweat. But if you start sweating in a certain, if you feel the sweat on your face, so you're like,
Yeah.
I can smell
People
myself.
are just
Great.
automatically grossed. Yeah.
Great, here I go. And it's like I've never. There's been a few females throughout my entire life that I could even tell that they were sweating or even had the remnants of any kind of smell,
Right.
like an armpit. But women are way more conscious than men are.
Armpit.
Dudes, I smell them immediately. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that dude stinks.
Yeah.
But you just get used to it, whatever. But like women, like Melena's, if she thinks that her armpits smell bad all the time, and I'm like, I have never smelled your armpit once. I smell secret deodorant, if anything, in the room or some
Yeah.
fragrance. But it's like women are much more focused. Like, I'm stinking, I'm hot, I'm sweaty.
Yes.
Right.
But it's like it's hard living down here in Florida, and we're on camera, we're trying to look our best. If going and showing properties, right? Like you see agents that these guys still rock suits, and they're a buyer's agent rocking
More
around.
power
It's like,
to 'em, man.
Dude, how you doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you stay
I
dry?
know.
It's tough, man. I'll be honest, man. I cheat. Usually will ditch the coat after the first showing. Like I'll show up with the coat on the first one.
Right.
And then
First impression, and then
usually we have a little bit of rapport, right? And then after we see the first house, I take the coat off, hang it up in the truck, and then it's just
Eventually,
like,
he's in sandals and board shorts.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
tank top. He's
Yes,
like
yeah. By
backwards
if,
Sleeves
yeah,
are
if
rolled
we're
up.
seeing 10 properties
Yeah.
by property 10.
if we're not best friends by the time we've seen that 10th property, like we shouldn't even work together.
No,
honestly.
yeah.
That is true.
Yeah,
right?
you have
Making
to
friends.
work with. That's what's great about being an entrepreneur, I think too. Like you get to choose who you work with.
You can fire whoever you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. You,
You
can
don't
fire clients.
have to work
She doesn't get to
with
fire me though,
anybody.
unfortunately for her sometimes.
So that's a more complicated contract you guys signed.
Yeah.
Than that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. I use that all the time in entrepreneurship. You do get to fire clients, and I fire clients.
Yeah.
And I fire clients in the way where I can be like, hey, like just based on what I'm hearing here, before they even become a client, they're trying to become a client, but how many questions they're asking, how many problems they'll tell you about all their previous vendors in the first call, as if you owe them an apology for the other vendors.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, like just based on what I'm hearing here, I don't think it's going to be a good fit for us.
And it's a favor for
And
both.
it almost feels like I've never had someone get mad. It almost feels like that just screws up for myself because they called wanting business. I'm like, yo, like you might be the reason you've had bad service,
Right.
Because you might be just bad vibey person that you don't know.
Yes.
So it's like it is nice you don't have to listen to them. It's like there's truth in that.
Yeah.
The people and I think in real estate, sometimes you can tell the agents who are more buyers agents than sellers agents are
Oh,
so
yeah.
easier to deal with when they get their first listing. Do you know why that is? I kind of think I know.
Tell me why you think it is.
If you've been working with buyers more, you have to schmooze more. You have to just walk around, hang out with people, agree with people a lot, be conversational, right? You're like you said, 10 times you're hanging out with somebody. So when they're calling us and they get that first listing, they're riding the high of, ooh, I got a listing now.
Right.
But they're also like, I'm just another guy. And they're treating me like they treat their buyer when they're on the
Yes.
phone. But if they're sellers agents only and they're always used to, they call them, they list their property, then people call them. They're used to all these inbound calls. Like, I got what you want, you come to me. Their whole demeanor is different.
Yes.
You owe them something.
Yeah.
They want you to kiss the ring and almost.
Well, and the listing agents are more apt to having a negotiation, right? So you may experience that those people are more willing to negotiate on pricing or
Exactly.
what you're charging or what the package is that they're getting. Whereas the buyer's agents are usually the ones that are delivering that to the
exactly.
listing
There's a
agent.
difference. I feel the difference big time.
Yeah.
I feel it, especially if you're like a 20-year veteran listing agent. You can already know, like, all I hear is like gonna be a big pain in the ass, and then
Yes.
you just try to see how much of a pain in the ass, and we try to work through that. But
Right.
I think when I really think about it, yeah, sure, being a listing agent has its incentives, but being a buyer's agent makes sense because you're building a better relationship with somebody, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know somebody now, especially if it's an investor buyer, because now you know that person that's going to probably do more than one deal with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus a lister, they might sell and be gone outside of 40, never hear from them again. So
Well, yeah, and you're not going over to your listing at all times to see that seller every
not seeing him all the time,
couple of
right.
days or every week or so. So
Right.
it's more of a
building more relationship. You're seeing them a lot. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You ever bring your daughters with you when you're like showing houses?
if I'm trying to sell one, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you utilize that?
So I'll usually let them open up the lockbox or let them open with the key in the door and open everything up. And then I've started teaching my oldest one how to, take the MLS sheet and kind of read through. All right, this one has 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms, and this one has a really nice kitchen. So then I'll start training her to walk through and be like, oh, look at this really nice kitchen, or oh, look at this really nice living room. And so they obviously the clients think it's adorable, they think it's cute, but it's a great kind of chills everybody out, breaks the ice. and it's
Oh, it can
not.
definitely break the ice because children are honest. So there's like,
Yeah.
there's things that you may be thinking that they'll just straight up say. Like,
I'm
they'll
not saying I
walk in,
haven't
they'll be
walked
like,
into a
this
house.
kitchen is a dump.
Yeah.
And then it's, you can kind of see like the buyer, they're like, yeah,
I
was
agree,
kinda
girl.
thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And then we're like, all right, easy. Let's move on to the next. It cuts a lot of the crap.
That's something I thought about before when you're thinking about properties. Like, if you're a buyer's agent and you're doing a showing, like, where does I guess it's individual, but like, where is a reasonable place to draw the line with honesty and then salesmanship? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you need the deal, and so you're talking them into shit that really isn't a good investment for them. And I know people who've done that. I've seen it before. And even like I was explaining, like, this goes in the same thing with comping houses, agreeing to a listing price, because when people say, hey, do you do a pay at closing? I do. But I want to talk to you about these comps real quick, because if you just let your seller tell you everything and you accept
you're not
the
going to
price,
sell the
then
property.
I'm not going to risk not getting paid because you're not afraid to put your foot down.
100%.
Or too afraid. So it's like if someone's like, they come in like, they need the deal, they need a listing. So seller says, I'm selling for 1.5, and you're like, this is worth 1.1 max.
Yep.
1.5, or I'm not doing it. Okay, let's take the listing.
Right.
The option is that you start discounting price improvement, and it looks like this house is on clearance by the end of it, and it's not good for anyone. Or when people are taking buyers. So I think there's a lot of like integrity issues throughout real estate in that way, But I mean, there's also a point where it's like sometimes people might need the nudging because they do need to buy a house and settle down, and this would actually help their life. So you can be a good salesperson and nudge them along, because once they commit, they're happy they did. But it's like, is there a line there that you guys navigate? Like,
We really heavily lean into getting to know our clients. I mean, I think if you can set expectations in the beginning, if you actually take a minute to sit down with your client and really just listen, I think there's a lot of agents that can do a lot of talking. And really the aim of the game is like, just listen, ask really good questions, do that. Take the time to do that right in the beginning. Those 15 or 20 minutes that you have coffee and ask every question makes the sale easy, because at that point I know exactly what I'm looking for, because I know what they want and I'm looking through their eyes. And then we can give them 5 properties knowing this is exactly the kind that they want, and it actually makes it pretty easy. We don't have to push anything. Then it's like, which one do you like? Which one do you not like? And if you can approach it that way, honestly, real estate sales is not it's not a car salesman game. You're not trying to convince them. You're not trying to push the price. Like, you're working on behalf of them. Find them what they want. They'll love it enough to offer what it is that they want. And we do differ, I know, whenever it comes to that, because we don't ever push it. I mean, it sounds, I guess, cliche, but like, for us, it's if the client is happy, they're going to be a repeat client. That's going to be more than one sale down the road. And we can push somebody or talk somebody into buying a house, but ultimately at the end of the day, they're going to live in that house. And if they don't like the house, or they did feel like, there's regret when buying it, it's going to turn around and be like, oh, I felt pressured into it, or we definitely overpaid for this. They'll never be back. So we never push the deal for the deal.
I'm speaking of this because I've heard it from so many sellers.
Yes.
Because we come in contact with a lot of them. Do you have any different things you want to add on that?
I was just going to point out to like the listing side of things is we learned pretty early on from our team leader. He takes the approach of just like punch them in the gut with what the actual valuation is. And if you get the deal, you get the deal. If you don't, what's going to eventually happen is
you're saving yourself a lot of headache.
They're going to list it higher with another agent. If they do, it's going to work itself down. It's going to do exactly what you said. It probably won't sell. Then it looks tainted. And then guess who they're going to call when they actually are ready to sell it at the price it's worth. Exactly. And then it saves you all that trouble.
And the agent
But
that
you
gets
can only
paid
get
is
there
the agent that sells it.
when you're not desperate. That's my whole point.
Correct.
Which is the whole point to the theme of what we talked about originally, the theme of what I talked about on my story on the way here. It's like, until you have a little bit of money as your cushion, you make some really bad decisions.
Yep.
So when you have some money and you don't need every single deal you're talking to, you can actually be yourself, assert yourself more, tell the truth, and be like, fuck it. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen.
Right.
But if people they got to get the deal, they'll say anything to get it. And that's the problem. So I was listening to Grant say that, and he's like, your problem is not money. Your problem is lack of money. You don't have enough money to be the person you're supposed to be, which is like a bigger theme, but it's like how many people have to act a certain way. But, like you ask him, like, hey, if you had $30 million in the bank right now, would you still talk to that guy like that? Would you still schmooze with those people and pretend like you have to laugh at their bad jokes? Like,
Right.
no, you would be you.
Right.
But it's like everyone has. So it's like I think that's everyone's goal is to like free themselves from it. But I think people really need to start being a little bit more in the real estate world, especially just more honest with people on the price of their home, if it's a
Yeah.
good investment for them. Because when I used to go to a lot of listings when I was still shooting, that was one of the main things that because I'd overhear conversations. There's the agents there and the sellers there, so I'm listening to them chat while I'm shooting the house, and I would hear them talking, and they're just like complaining about the last agent for exactly that, or when I bought this, they told me I could sell it for this, or they told me this, or there's someone else came by and told me I
Yeah.
could only sell it for this, and then there's that side of it for sure.
There's not a level of trust that
And
comes.
you made me think about the listening. I remember specifically, this is an agent that's in your office, Christine Ellenbeck. One time I was at one of her listings in Lakeland. I was actually shooting because Michael was on vacation. I drove out from St. Pete to shoot her listing. Great client. I wanted to make sure we serviced her on that day that she needed it. And I was listening to her have the conversation with her. And I was like, damn, she killed that. She did a damn good job with like, so
Yep.
where do you guys want to go to? What are you thinking?
You
So South
stand
Lakeland,
up.
you want to be downtown? Like getting so many detailed
Yep.
questions on like what, backyard. What are you really looking for? And
Yeah.
I can't think of the exact questions, but exactly what you said. She was like wanted to know exactly where do you want to move to.
And
so
she
she was selling and
really
finding him a
wanted to
house.
know.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was like that was well played because she was listening to them as a husband and wife. They were talking. She was listening. She was writing a lot down.
Yep.
And I remember being like, I like that. I like how she's doing that because
That-
they feel really taken care of.
That's as hard as it is in
Yeah.
real estate when you get a client. Listen to them.
Yeah.
You're their headhunter. They're looking for something. Find out to the ultimate detail, not only what house they're looking for, what is their dream? Because a lot of the time that's what they're after. They're trading one dream for another, or they're after
True.
another. It's like, what is the end goal? Just ask questions and let them talk to you, and don't be in it with a sales mindset. Honestly, that is as hard as it has to be when it comes to real estate.
I love it. Well, guys, on that note, we're going to let them get talking, shooting their Rental Revolution course. But before we do, thank you all for listening. If you want to find them, you're going to find Batman the Realtor on Instagram, Homes and Heels. And now there's some characters in between, so you guys can give your own name in a second. But I want you guys to all go follow the Rental Revolution right now. If you liked anything like you heard, they're going to do a much deeper dive and action-packed lesson, tutorial for you guys so you can learn all the short-term rental sets they've had. And thanks once again for tuning in. Drop your IGs and let's get to it.
Homes and Heels. Mine's pretty direct on Instagram.
But there's dots, right?
Is there?
I thought.
Yes, there is.
I think it's homes.heels. We've been tagging it lately.
Okay. I'll have
Period.
to remember
Period.
what my own Instagram
Yeah,
is.
no
Can we
doubt.
link it to the
Yeah.
podcast?
Oh, we're going to put it in. Yeah. And then
And then mine is just Batman, BATMAN _ the Realtor on Instagram.
got it. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.